Well, good evening, everybody. First thing I'd like to know is if I've got a microphone working. Excuse me. I'm just waiting for my guest. Got quite a day to report, and I'm just waiting on my guest so we can get started. Uh, as you could tell from my Twitter, we had an almost today, which I'll get into. Thank you for the sound check. Uh, so, we'll get into a little bit of it once we get the thing set up. Uh, how's everybody doing today? It's been one of those days, I'll tell you. Uh, I guarantee you, this has been one of the most interesting days in this trial. And it's only the second day. Uh, because the first day we had the jury selection, and then day one of the trial was actually day two. And then on day three, it kind of turned into a half day. Really strange. Um, and this morning was even something else. And what had happened is Neely decided she wanted a lawyer. And so we had, hi John, Fireman John. So there was quite an exchange between Neely, the prosecution, and the judge over her sudden change of mind and saying, I need a public defender, a lawyer. I don't feel I'm being treated fairly. And she just, she basically said she wasn't getting treated fairly. The judge asked her why she felt that way, and she couldn't be too specific on why she couldn't get a fair trial. And so she went on and on and on, and finally the judge says, look, we're in a critical stage in this trial. I asked you from day one if you wanted a public defender, and you refused. And it's to the point where we can't, we just can't do it. So the judge denied her request to appoint a attorney. And so she's stuck representing herself, and that's where we're at right now. And so as soon as I get my guest in, I'm going to go over this a little bit, because I'm looking at my notes. Because we had a forensics expert, a couple experts, but the dramatic moment is going to come when it comes to the phone call. Well, Fireman John, she's not getting anybody. The judge said, well, you had enough time, so you're not going to get a judge. And so we're going to have everything go forward. Okay. Okay, I need you on, I'm going back and forth with, I need you on YouTube so I can send you the link. Let's see if I just. I guess I can do it by. No, I don't want Facebook. Let's try this again. Okay, yeah. No, that's not working. Okay, I need you to get on. Okay. All right, now I'm just gonna have to. Just bear with me, folks. I got to try and get her in here. This is the same issue we had yesterday. This is not. Trying to do this on this computer is the pits. Okay, I'm going to have you audio for a minute. I'm having a problem sending you the link. Can you get on YouTube?
Alright, so I need you to press Control V to.
Yeah, I've got it copied, but.
Control V as in Victor.
Okay. Because I was going to give it to you in private, but I can do it this way. Okay.
There you go. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Lori. I'm trying to get Kim in here. So I'm waiting for. Okay. Okay, there she is.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Okay, we need a sound check for Kim.
Can everybody
I
hear
can
me?
hear you, Kim.
Okay.
I can hear you, Kim.
All right. Let me put up my notes.
Okay. All right. The sound check worked.
Okay.
So, Kim, why don't you go ahead and start? Now, when did you come into court? Did you come in after the big argument or after?
I don't know. Why don't you start off with that?
This was when Neely was asking for her to finally have a lawyer, and they went through that rigmarole where the judge said no. It took too long.
Oh, with the attorney-client privilege. I mean, the request for an attorney. Yeah. So I was there for that. So we started out today, though, with um, some tea. There was a woman who had been sitting in the courtroom for a few days. She was apparently the former cellmate for Neely, and she had been sitting in the courtroom, scribbling away, sometimes furiously flapping her papers over and underlining. And she reminded me of one of those auditors, that all the sovereign citizens try to be. Excuse me. So today, she, I guess, it was revealed that she was giving information or speaking to Neely's mother and or sister about testimony in the case. And so the court told the bailiff to exclude her permanently from the trial. There was another girl sitting on the defendant's side. She was admonished never to do that also, but she had not been accused of that. So that was a little bit of action when
Oops.
oops,
Yeah, I'm trying to do something. Sorry about that, Kim.
it's all right.
You're fine. It was me.
Yeah, so when the girl tried to come into the courtroom, it was a big ruckus outside. She was arguing with the bailiffs, etc. So that was pretty exciting. So then we started out the day with Neely stating that she wanted to object because she was not getting a fair trial. She said that she looked through all of her files yesterday and had not been given the evidence that was put forward yesterday by the state. And the state and the court reminded her that they had all been sitting in the court and witnessed her prior attorney, Jack Morrow, give her all of the potential exhibits by the state. All of those potential exhibits were the ones that were used by the state. No new ones, no surprise exhibits, etc. So that argument was quickly brushed aside. And then the more notable argument, she said that she was not getting a fair trial because she did not have an attorney. And so that now she wanted an attorney. So the court said, surprisingly, after the previous days offering her an attorney, said at this point, we're at a critical stage in the trial. We've gone too far. You are asking to delay the trial, to appoint an attorney. And at this point, the court had asked her a few questions. At this point, the court found that she was using that request simply to delay the trial, that she had been given a request or an opportunity every day. And now we were probably past the middle of trial or in the middle of trial, and she just was serving to delay the trial. And the court then said, we had given you plenty of opportunities. The court also had an older case that she was quoting from, that she had gone back and gotten, that showed that in previous cases that it would pass muster to go ahead and deny a request for attorney if a litigant was using the request to delay, or if it would, prejudice the proceedings, because the state has a right to a due process as well, and us, the people of Florida, have a right to see that trials go through in an expeditious manner. So that would be prejudicial to the people of Florida. So the court, unfortunately, denied her an attorney, and so she was forced to go forward. She didn't seem too upset about that, actually, and then we went forward. But I know that L. Kennedy was asking about that a lot, and that was that. Mark?
Yeah. I was just letting you know. Did you want to do this the same way as yesterday and just go through what you saw, because not too much happened between you, between the time that I was there and you arrived. I know you had to do your legal
Yeah.
business before you came into court.
Yeah, and actually, I'm looking at my notes when Neely and the court were going back and forth about her request for a surprise attorney in the middle of trial and to delay the trial, of course. Um, the court noted that she had um, good strategies and that she had been doing a very good job in her
Yeah,
questioning and, other than, violating the rules with making erroneous or inappropriate arguments, which is not uncommon for pro se litigants, that she had actually done a good job and said that she was well versed. She had a strategy. She had chosen to dismiss Mr. Morrow, and the court then had apparently found that that was a strategic choice by Neely, and that she had also done that in an attempt to delay the trial. So obviously, none of us were at that hearing, but that's what the court stated. And the court stated, if I'm wrong, the appellate court can overturn me. But she was not willing to delay or call off the trial or start over because Neely had been offered an attorney so many different times and had foregone that opportunity. Okay, so then it was time for the state's first witness, and the state called Caitlin Baxter, who was a senior forensic crime technician. She had photographed the whole scene of the crime pursuant to a search warrant. Let me just kind of look through my notes. Neely continued to object all during the proceeding and in this witness. She usually objected to unfair prejudice, and she claimed that she had not received the photos we'd be looking at, for instance, on the big screen. But when attorneys seek to admit evidence into trial, whether it be documentary evidence or photographs, prior to trial, there is a trial order, and the attorneys will mark our potential exhibits with letters or with numbers, however the court likes. So they will say, this will be, this exhibit is a potential exhibit identified as, plaintiffs or states A, and B, C, D. Then when you have to disclose all of those, that list to the other side, and everybody exchanges exhibits well before the trial. And they had done that with her, and they confirmed that she had received all of the potential exhibits by the state. So now that Neely is just making those objections, it was seemingly for the audience of the jury to make them have sympathy for her. Maybe one of them would think, oh, the system is, really crushing this girl with lack of due process. But that clearly was not the case. And the judge continued to remind Neely that she had received all of these exhibits well prior to the trial, with plenty of time to object to any of them. I did believe I don't know if I saw a question. Mert, when you put up questions, sometimes I don't see them until the last minute, and then they're gone. So, do you remember what it was?
Oh, what was that now? Uh,
Was there a
'Cause
question?
they were, because I know they had put up images of Chris Hallett's autopsy with all the bullet wounds and everything.
Yes.
And they started out, they had the forensic technician on to describe the bullets and, bullet number 1 and through 7, what the bullets were, where they were, and she would use, they would do close-ups. And now let's see, now they also, I think we went through, did we go through his image? Yes, that was yesterday, I believe, because I'm just trying to get caught up here. Because today they had pictures of all the bullet casings and live rounds on the floor in the house, and the technician went through bullet by front door, and then they had the picture of the photo tags, the little yellow thingamajigs, and she explained what they were and why they were used. Number 5 was a live round on the floor. 6, they had 9mm by his head. That was a shell casing. Sticker number 3 was more live rounds. 4 was live rounds. These were in the kitchen area, around some of the blood. And then, let's see, 3 live rounds in the living room, or in the, this is an open floor plan unit, so the bullets were mainly between the kitchen and what I suppose you could call the living room. And so basically they went through locating all these live rounds. Now live rounds 5 and 6 were right in the middle of the blood that came out of Chris Hallett, you know, in the general area of his head and so forth, but you could see that there was blood all over the place. And then they showed the casings in the envelope, and more, you know, they basically, it just was a whole bunch of casings that they had in the various locations that they showed. And then they started to do images of the house itself, and in the bathroom they had Neely's purse next to the toilet, and they started going over the blood spatter evidence. This was the blood spatter expert came in and she started going over the blood spatter evidence, explaining the different types of blood spatter, showing by the pattern of the blood spatter where Chris Hallett was. There was one in the kitchen area where he leaned on the counter and tried to get down, and apparently while he was on his way down, she shot Chris, because the blood spatter went on the upper part of the cupboard, and the expert said that he would have had to been level with the blood splatter. She did this in most of the presentation, that if he was either standing up or lying down, he was...
Mark, can I stop you 1 second?
Sure.
Okay. And on this particular chat or this platform that I'm on, I don't think I can make comments, but yes, everybody, I'm seeing your comments. I have some breaking news that I just received, and this is from a highly verified source who knows Neely, like shares blood with her. Neely has been put on suicide watch at the jail. She's been taken out of her cell. She's been stripped down. She's been, everything has been taken away from her, and she is now in a single cell on suicide watch.
Yeah, that's definitely breaking news. I was wondering if they were going to do that, because she just, as we get through the process here with all this, people are going to understand why. And so what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to let you continue on from where your area, because most of what I saw was a display of forensic evidence, Neely objecting and getting overruled, and the judge admonishing her that she needs to follow the rules. So it's a constant through the whole process. And then once you came in, then it was basically the same. So I'm just going to go ahead and let you take over and with your commentary at that point.
Sure. We did get to see a photo of the Neely's purse, which was a large black purse. She left it on the bathroom floor in the other bathroom. That's most likely where she was speaking with her mother, because that was the room that was adjacent to the bathroom that the child and Shannon were hiding in. And so most likely she went in there, made her phone call, and left her purse in there. And I can report that in that bathroom that Chris Hallett chose a bath mat from the cartoon movie Cars, for what it's worth, if anybody was wondering. But I don't know if anyone has any comments about the breaking news before I move on, because that's breaking news. And, clearly no one wants Neely to commit suicide. Everyone, even if you like Neely, you don't like Neely, but if you don't like her, you don't want her to die. If
No.
she's guilty of the crime and you believe that she killed another human being, then she should serve her time, have her day in court, and if she's found guilty, serve her time. But of course, at least I personally, hope that she's okay. I'm sure that, it's a horrible spot that she's in, but, again, you want to be stupid, you got to be tough, and you fuck around, and you do find out. She's finding out. I have a little club called Fuck Around Find Out. I think I'm the head of it. All right.
Cool project.
Yes. Okay. All right. So, by the way, Neely was wearing the same black suit with her hair up in a bun. She looked clean. She didn't look like she had makeup on. She looked happy when she came in the morning. It's my understanding, just from reading someone's message that they sent to me, that I believe that the Canadian woman that attempts to give her the worst legal advice in the world to send her down the river did buy her that black suit, if we can believe reports from Telegram. And I just thought that was apropos. If you're going to send someone down the river and into prison for the rest of their life, you might as well buy them a new black suit, right? You might as well. Like a farewell gift. Right there you go. So that was that. We heard from the most remarkable incident today was hearing the confession tape, I'm going to call it. And that was the tape that we've all heard that was Neely calling Kathy Watson right after she committed the murder. And this tape was much different than the one that they had released publicly, and in fact did contain actual admissions of the crime and a lot of other material. So I am going to, hang on one second. I'm going to, and Mert, you want to talk, and I'm going to find my notes from this confession tape, because I think I had pretty exact notes.
Yeah, as all of you remember, I had gotten a lot of discovery evidence from the court a year or so ago, and one of the things I got was the call to Kathy Watson while she was on her way to Georgia. Now, unbeknownst to anyone here, I accidentally got the unredacted video, or the call from Neely Blanchard, Kathy Watkins, and in the tape that I had, she confessed to murdering Chris Hallett at least 5 times. And the clerk called me back and asked me not to use that version, and that they were going to send me the redacted version because that was not supposed to have been released. So I honored their request, and I stored my copy, and I've been playing the copy that the court sent me in its place. So that's why you don't hear the confessions. Today they played the unredacted version, and everything was there. All the details. And so, that's where it's at now. That stuff is now public, so I'm going to rewrite the court and ask them if I can now release that tape. But we'll see what happens
I did
with
just
that.
see a question. I don't know who it was from, because now it's passed, and I don't know how to. On this, I can't control the chat.
Okay, re-ask the question, whoever did, because
No, I think I know what the question is. I know what the question was. Is, can the trial continue while Neely is on suicide watch? And the answer is yes. It will continue as scheduled. The confession tape. I do have my notes now. This was the witness that brought this in was, again, Detective John Lytle. I believe he had been called before. Again, he
Mm-hmm.
was just a real smart detective. He was clearly the lead detective on this homicide investigation, and he went through
Mm-hmm.
also some information about Neely's day on November 15th, 2020, before she decided to become a homicidal maniac. And what she had done is we know that she had stayed in the Courtyard Marriott from the 12th of November until the 14th of November when she checked out. And then she then slept, as you know, at Chris Hallett's house on the 15th, or actually the 14th. And the 15th is when the murder happened. So she was staying at the Courtyard Marriott. On the day of the murder, November 15th, he did know that she had traveled to from the Courtyard Marriott to Chris's house. She'd also gone to a local Publix grocery store. So he did pull the surveillance video from both the Courtyard Marriott and the Publix grocery store. And he said that the surveillance video of Neely that day was unremarkable, that she was carrying on as normal. She was speaking with the front desk clerk at the hotel. She did not show anything abnormal. She wasn't under stress. She wasn't acting nervous, and even at the grocery store. So how a homicidal maniac can go to the grocery store and buy a steak dinner and act like nothing? You'd have to ask Neely. It takes a certain kind of person to know that you're going to be committing murder. She obviously knew that she was going to be committing murder, in my opinion, because she had even told her sister 6 months earlier that she knew that Chris Hallett and Kirk Pendergrass were lying to her and that they were in on this big cabal that was trafficking children. And I'll get to that a little bit later when we're talking about the testimony from Neely's sister, Savannah. So as the testimony went forward with Detective Lytle, he was the one that actually had the authenticated the tape from Kathy Watson. And by the way, during the day of the murder, prior to the murder, Neely was wearing a black T-shirt with a Bible passage on the front. That was the same black T-shirt we had seen from the photos. It had been thrown in the back seat of the car the next day. She was also wearing a baseball cap that said "We the People." It was denim. And she was wearing gray leggings and flip-flops. All of those clothes, except the flip-flops, we had seen yesterday when we saw photos of the crime scene tech from the crime scene tech who had photographed the interior of Neely's car pursuant to the search warrant. So she had obviously taken off all of her clothes after the murder and chucked them in the back seat and was wearing different clothes upon her arrest. I'm sure those clothes were taken in, and I believe they were taken by the police, of course, for gunshot residue, DNA analysis, etc. He was asked to explain the QAnon theory and the sovereign citizen ideology that Neely had been following for quite some time. He did an excellent job doing that. He described QAnon as a belief where they believe that Democrats are trafficking children and the government is covering it up, for a lack of a better word, and there are higher ups that traffic children for their endocrine. I think I'm saying that right. Excuse me. All
Mm-hmm.
right. They also we also found out from that detective that they had obtained Christopher Hallett's phone, Shannon's phone, and their computers and laptops, and that they had extracted all materials therefrom, and that there was no relevant information to the case on either anyone's device or laptop. Um, then I'd like to go ahead and get. Oh, at that time during this cop's testimony, here comes another, what I'm going to say looked like an auditor that sat on Neely's side. She was a pretty blonde lady, but she had a puss on her face, and she was there. She came in, stormed in, sat down. She was probably angry because the prior auditor got kicked out, for passing information to potential witnesses, which
Which
is
one
being
was that,
echoed.
Chris? Or which one was that?
Oh, I don't know if you saw her. She was another. I looked and I made notes of every single person that entered the courtroom, and you're going to need to do
Yeah,
that
I was just
tomorrow.
wondering what she was wearing because I had thought I saw somebody like that, and I mistook her for a reporter from the local TV station that was
Oh no,
sitting there.
she would not have
The
been
one with
mistaken
the
for a
white
reporter.
blazer.
No, she would not have been mistaken for a reporter. She was a big lady. She looked like she would have been the queen of the cell block at one time. She was wearing a
Oh,
jean jacket and a white and black
oh yeah,
dress.
now I know who you're
She had a
talking
puss
about.
on her face. She was pretty, blonde, wavy hair, but she was taking notes violently in the courtroom. So it looks like we had
Yeah.
another auditor. She left after about an hour, by the way. Um, and in my notes, here's my exact note to myself. Note, the auditor is sitting taking notes with a puss on her face. LOL. This is called due process, lady. Love it, learn it. So that was my note to myself. Okay. Um, let's go ahead. And at that point, the tape recording was offered into evidence. Neely, again, had objected. Most of the time, she was objecting now to authentication, which she pronounced authentication. But she was using that coined objection, for lack of a better word, all day today. None of them actually worked because the materials and the evidence were being authenticated by the people right there on the stand. That's why they were there on the stand, to authenticate whatever piece of evidence was coming in. So the police officer also had explained that they had obtained Neely's cell phone from the car and that they had extracted all of the data, and that they have Cell Hawk software. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that. Cell Hawk software is used by law enforcement both on the federal and state level. Excuse me. Let's say the police would get a search warrant to Verizon to get all the timestamps and geolocation data for the phone, and Verizon
What
would
I'm gonna
give
do is
that
I'm gonna
data in a spreadsheet. Oh, can
create.
you hear me? Can anyone hear me? Oh, I'm hearing it's good now. Okay. Mert, you said I have audio problems, but nobody else did that I can see. So I'm going to continue on. Can you hear me, Mert? I think the person with the audio problems is Mert. Can you guys hear me? Can someone just tell me? I'm like, I don't think he's like scrolling down the mess. Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and go. Mert, you join us when you can, but we can't hear you. Okay. So back to the CellHawk software. That was a very interesting presentation. So the data from Verizon in this case was obtained pursuant to a valid search warrant and given to the police. The police can literally scan that spreadsheet that they get from Verizon with a bunch of jumbled up data on it and put it into software called CellHawk. Hang on, Mert is calling me. Hi, I'm still up. So can you get back on? No, I'm on. Everyone can hear me, so I'm continuing to go. Okay. All right. Okay. All right, bye. Right, so that was Mert. Okay, so then the CellHawk software will translate that data into a usable format for law enforcement officers, and it will give the timestamps and the maps and geolocation data of where a cell phone was during the times where it was making calls, receiving calls, or incoming and outgoing texts as it is bouncing off of various towers. I think we've all seen that now in the movies, and that is what's also I was referring to last night as pinging the phone. And what I was saying, it's unquestionable that the confession was from Neely, is because they can see her phone bill calling Kathy Watson, and they can see where that phone is pinging and it's pinging down the road on the way to Georgia. And we saw that actual data today. We saw that on various different times, for instance, 7:55 was the last call before, I think the night prior. Then at 7:55 p.m. on November 15th, she was at Chris Hallett's house. We know that because she was pinging off the nearest tower from Chris's house. Also, when they ping off towers, it can be from the west side, the north side of the tower, so they can almost tell which direction from that tower the phone is being utilized. At this time, Neely was objecting on the basis of prejudicial comments. There was no explanation other than prejudicial comments, and that objection was overruled. So we know a little bit about Neely's day, just the operative things. At 11:58 a.m., she was pinging off of the same tower that would be for Chris's house. At 5:14 p.m. on the date of the homicide, the phone was using the tower nearest the Publix grocery store. So we know at 5 o'clock p.m., that's when she was at the Publix grocery store. By the way, they knew that she was at a Publix because they had found a Publix receipt in the car when they searched it with the search warrant. At 5:59, she was pinging on a tower near an interstate, almost as if she was going now to Chris's house. That could have been Chris's house or the courtyard. I'm sorry, my notes aren't good enough there. At 6:12 p.m., she was pinging off a tower that was then going towards Chris's house. So that was at 6:12 p.m. We know the murder happened at around 9 o'clock p.m. So at 6:12, she's headed towards Chris's house after checking out, I guess, of the courtyard or getting her things and going to Publix. At 6:26 p.m., she's still pinging, obviously making a call, receiving a call, and is heading towards Chris's house. The testimony was a bit eerie because you know that, she's pinging and going toward, leaving Publix, going towards Chris's house, on her way to Chris's house, closer and closer on these towers. And you know what happens, when she gets there, you kind of, the end of the story. But it was done with the, geolocation maps, with the towers, etc. So it was a little bit eerie because you're sitting there ramping up anticipation because when she gets there, she's going to end his life. And you just want to say, lock the door or something. All right. Then, so again, the last ping that he discussed was 6:26 p.m. arriving at Chris's house. No other pings. And then at 9:07 p.m., we have a cell phone ping close to the victim's house. So that's believed that would have been at the scene of the homicide. It was facing the correct way, everything. So at 9:07, she's making a phone call or receiving a phone call. At 9:12 p.m., she is now pinging from a tower that's closer to the interstate. So it looks like she has now left the house after the homicide has been committed. Then he went through because he got the data from Verizon, and he knew who she called or who had called her and how long that call had lasted. So if you recall, at 9:07 p.m., she was at Chris's house. This would have been after the homicide because the 911 call was shortly, I believe, before that. And I've got that in my notes. So at 9:07 p.m., the cell phone is being used in the house. It's an outgoing call, and it's 81 seconds. We know that probably to be her calling her mother. And that is the same phone call that the eyewitness Liliana testified to, that she heard Neely making a call from the bathroom or the room next door to the bathroom where they were hiding, that she heard her mother or heard Neely say, "Mom, I just shot Chris. I did it. I've got to get out of here." That is probably the call, and it was 81 seconds, and it was at 9:07 p.m. I do have the phone number. I don't know if it's appropriate for me to say, but it's a 615 phone number. and I'm not going to go and say it online just in case that person still has the phone number, out of privacy for that person. At 9:16 p.m., there's the phone record showed that, let's see, I'm sorry, 27-second call. And that was a call from a particular number into Neely's phone, and it began with 270. I believe that was like a girlfriend of hers. I don't think it was Kathy Watson. It was someone else. It was a 27-second call. Then at 9:17 p.m., there was, with the phone pinging going down towards the interstate after she had left the house, the detective testified that that road that she was pinging from would have been the straightest shot from Chris Hallett's house directly to Valdosta, Georgia. So that's the direction that she would have been heading, and was eventually found and arrested pursuant to the BOLO. Then there was a 911 call called in to her at 9:09. So this is, I know the time was back up. At 9:09, 911 call called into her. She has previously stated that she called 911 from Chris's house after she shot him. And I guess she dropped the call. It was, she had previously said she thought that Chris's, algorithms and his connections were blocking 911 calls. No, that was just a spotty signal. And in fact, 911 actually tried to call her back. She didn't answer the phone. At 9:17, that was the 5 minutes later from the 911 call. That's when she was pinging on down the road. Then at 9:38 p.m., there was a north side of a tower. She's now traveling north down Highway 326, and that would be on her way to Georgia. There was also a 52-second incoming call at that time. The first and last calls during the day is a setting that you can check for on the particular database they were using, and all of the first and last call and all the calls throughout the day, and it gives you an average of if there was a location where the cell phone was pinging the most, and that was at Chris Hallett's house. The detective then went on to say that he did interview Kathy Watson, and that he would describe her as friends or acquaintances. And then here we go. They offered into evidence the famous confession recording. Do I have any questions before I get them? And unfortunately, I don't think. Oh, I can scroll down. Do the cell records show when she hooked up with her husband? And that's from Fireman John. I don't know. The only ones he went through, he kind of stopped there. The last call he spoke about, I mean, I'm sure he got them, but the last call that was relevant to testify about was at 9:38 p.m. And that was the call, 52 seconds incoming call. The car was traveling north on Highway 36. So when she met up with her husband, that was later that evening, and we didn't have any data to testify to with regard to those calls. But that was a great question. Let me just kind of scan through. It sounded like Neely left her purse next to the toilet after she called her mom from the bathroom. This is a comment from Sam. Neely was never going to get away with this, and I don't think she even tried to get away with it. Sam, that's a great comment. The purse was exactly where you described it, right there at the toilet. It's a small bathroom. If you could picture, the shower's there and the toilet, and the purse is right there in front of the toilet, almost like she probably sat down, was rummaging in her purse because it was open. The purse was open, and you could see a few things. I noted what was in the purse that I could see. I noted a red file, a manila envelope, and a white piece of paper, and then a phone cord. That was what you could see, at least there. So I can imagine she probably took the phone cord off and, Mom, I just, committed a massive homicide. So that was a great comment. Hang on, let me just look. Sam, I really want to play Sovereign Citizen Bingo tonight, but today was cut short because of some major event that occurred within the court. So I'll tell you about that in a minute after the confession video. But today's court session only lasted a little over half a day. So, but we're going to get to the bottom and all that. And now we have a resolution to that event and everything. So we got all the news for you. Don't worry. All right. So back to this confession tape. Then they turned on the tape. And wowza, was I stunned. Of course, I had heard the confession tape that Mert had played on air for everyone here. And thank you, Mert, for getting all of that information from the clerk of court and requesting it and waiting for it and all that jazz. I know it's a pain in the butt. But so you had heard that tape, but now there were parts of the tape that you had never heard before. And let me tell you about some of them. All right. And here we go. 1 second. Now, this was Neely, if you recall her tape to Kathy Watson, her taped call, and she was speaking fast because she was extremely excited, and she had just committed a homicide. So I was trying to type as fast as I can. So I just got, the pivotal points, but I did get, the ones that were her actual confession. I got those word for word. She started out by saying, "It's November 15th." And then she said, "Is it recording?" All right, so here I go. I'm going to just kind of read through my notes. This is the confession tape, Neely Blanchard calling Kathy Watson directly after the homicide. "I live in Pensacola," she announced who she was, etc. "My husband is in the Coast Guard in Pennsylvania. I came down here a few days ago, blah, blah, blah. My daughter was stolen in 2010. I've been helping Chris Hallett with E-Clause." And I think you guys would recognize, these things. If you've heard that tape one or two times, you might recognize that portion of the tape. But other portions, no. She said, "I just found out tonight that he's been lying to me, exploiting me." So remember, she just said, "I found out tonight." Previous testimony from her sister, said that she had found out that he was lying 6 months ago. She had told her sister. So that's your premeditation. But here, even in her confession tape to her best friend or good friend, she's lying. "I just found out tonight that he's been lying to me, exploiting me." And then she said, quote, "I shot Christopher Hallett because he is part of the human Satan child trafficking of children. It's going on in Kentucky. I have all of the evidence with me. Who is going to expose what is happening? He told me that he said he was going to fax the paperwork today, but he didn't. He was lying." She went on and on about how he had been lying. But the pivotal statement there is, "I shot Christopher Hallett because he is part of a human Satan child trafficking of children." That's the exact quote. And that was played extremely loud. I think that they intentionally turned up the volume a few clicks for this recording because it was so loud in there. You could hear every word clearly. It was ringing in your ears. And because she was so excited and hyped up, it was as if the audience started following along. You were getting hyped up too as she kept going and going. And then, boom, "I shot Chris Hallett." And she was almost yelling it. Wow, that was a very dramatic moment in court. All of the jurors, I looked over at them, all of them were looking up, and they all went down and started taking notes, except two of them. All of them were taking notes. I looked over several other times during the course of this recording being played. Most of them were taking notes or looking up and then taking notes. They were taking the exact words down that Neely had used in this confession tape. Here she goes again, and these are just my notes. "He," meaning Chris, "had me sign over my married name and has exploited my name. My name is Neely Blanchard." She went on to say her maiden name. He wanted her to take her maiden name, PETRIE, away. She said, "He wanted that name to be a dead corporation. He wanted to get rid of it because that is not what I did," or something like that. "I have evidence of what's going on in Roosevelt, Kentucky. Children are being abused." And she went into all of that. "I will stand up for the children." And then she said something that we did not hear. This was stunning. she yelled. Shannon and her daughter ran into the room. They were really scared, but I was never going to hurt them. Wow, right? Those are exact words. Then she went on. I tried to call 911, but he had it blocked out of his house. I'm recording this with Kathy Cunningham. I'm the only one that's been involved with E-Clause that knows what's going on. I feel my life is in danger. I know that E-Clause and Clerk's Law Corner know what they've done. By the way, she kept on saying and blaming E-Clause and Kirk's Law Corner, blaming Chris Hallett and Kirk Pendergrass. So she believed that they were in on this great Satan trafficking, whatever, with children, and that they were both in on it and that had exploited her for this whole time. Okay. Then she says, I feel like my life is in danger. I know that E-Clause and Kirk's Law, what they've done, Law Corner has done. These people will not win. I needed to stop it. I believe in a fair trial. I believe in freedom, not tyranny. Our children are being abused. No one is helping. The people supposedly helping were not the good guys. They were the bad guys. I'm the only one that has all the documentation. I have it at the, I think she said air station or something like that, at my house. Then she went into naming the states she thought were involved in this trafficking operation. So Pennsylvania, Georgia, South Carolina, Kentucky, Pennsylvania. And I feel like that guy, what was that guy that was running for, Rah! Remember the guy running for president? That guy? I forget what his name was. Yeah. Pennsylvania, Rah! You know. So if you're too young for that, sorry. That's how many states have been involved in this exploitation. And here she said, I want you to know that I prayed to God before I did it. I didn't just do it. Premeditation, murder 1, check mark. This has to be exposed. I have been exploited. I tried to call 911 to tell them and I shot Christopher Hallett, but I couldn't get through. Exact quote, guys. Then I got a call from this number, and she listed a number, 352-732-9111. You dumb bitch, that's 911 calling you back, all right? Your number wasn't blocked. You dropped the call, and they were nice enough to call you back, you homicidal maniac. All right. I don't know what bigger thing they're planning, but I need to talk to someone immediately so this can be exposed. I don't know how many times I shot him, but he's involved with senators and high-up elites. I have everything on my laptop. I'm doing this confession so that someone will get this to the right person. Don't let them do this to your kids. Chris Hallett telling me he would have had the police come and get me and my children. Note, at this point, I look over at Neely. She is now crying at the defendant's table. And I wrote in my notes, Neely is crying at defendant's table. Hope she realizes her goose is cooked. My note to self. I'm continuing. He's been telling me that the U.S. Marshals have been involved, and that's not true. I've been exploited, and my children. She kept stating over and over that she's been exploited by Kirk and Chris. I have to tell her that she's right about that, but not in what she believes. All right. God told me to stand up to all evil, and if there's anything worth dying for, it's my children. You can't let this evidence go. They are taking over all of our systems. Very bad things are happening. I loved Chris. I worked for him a long time. Kirk's Law Corner and E-Clause, I just found out what they were doing, and I had to stop it. I've been persecuted by these states. They've stolen my children. I don't know, and she listed 2 states. I think it must have been South Carolina and Florida, guessing. I don't know where to go to be safe. This is going to be everywhere. Human trafficking is everywhere. Then she said, okay, Kathy, I can't talk right now. Girl, my phone would not let me call 911. Kathy said, well, you just have to say what you said. Neely said, I have Verizon. They would not let me call 911 to get any kind of help. So they were going to hurt me. No one would be able to call my phone. Okay, Kathy, that's all. I don't know whether to call the FBI. Then they started talking about the familiar call that or portions of the call. Oh, Kathy said, maybe witness protection. No, when you commit a homicide, you don't need to be calling witness protection. You do not need protection. You need a jail cell. Okay, so then she had suggested, what about Florida State Police? I say, yeah, lady, call them all. Get arrested. And then she said, and Kathy, I think she had told her to stop recording, but it looks like she had not. And I was just guessing that because she had said, turn that thing off type of thing, and then, kept rolling. Neely said, I'm not going to let my children get hurt anymore, Kathy, or anyone else's. Listen, get me off of there. That's when she said, next to the court recording, but she didn't. So then it went on. Okay, and then it's almost like she made a second phone call. Remember how it sounded like she was making an announcement to the world? This is Neely PETRIE Blanchard calling from, that she did it again. So here we go, another announcement. Okay, Neely PETRIE Blanchard, we're at station this, all about losing her military ID, she had just realized I left my purse at Chris Hallett's house with all of my identification in there. The jury now is writing notes furiously the whole time. I look over at Neely. Neely is crying, and now it's audible. She's crying audibly at the defendant's table, and the female state attorney, gets up and gets a tissue box from the clerk of court and goes and hands the tissue box to Neely. And then she's crying, covering her eyes, wiping her eyes, blowing her nose. She was really at a full, vocal cry. But the tape kept rolling, and the tape was loud. She stated, other children are being abused too, destroying and exploiting everything on my journey, and he is destroying all. He's been on Kirk's Law Corner for 3 years. This should not be happening. Everything is going on in our country right now is being incited, riots, everything. They want chaos. They don't want peace. I had to protect myself and my girls. He told us not to wear seatbelts because that was a form of human bondage. He's been mind-fucking us. Yep. This is a network of people involved in this. I don't know everyone, but I know enough about it. Kirk Pendergrass called me. He found me when my husband was stationed at blah, blah, blah. I flew to Florida. Chris told me he could help me the whole time, but he lied. He told me I was a government asset. I'm not a science project. I'm not a petri dish. I saw a news flash from Newsmax on my phone, and they're having a Pensacola prayer vigil, something like that. She went on about that. Then it sounded like it was a different tape. Here she is making another introductory announcement again. Central Time, 10 Eastern Time. Ronnie Knowles just sent me. So now it's 10 o'clock p.m. She's still driving. So this is an hour after the homicide. She's already done that previous confession, etc. All right. Ronnie Knowles just sent me a text message. Said the girls have been there the whole time. Sent me the girls on a picture, I think it was. The girls on a Bible verse on Job. Kathy, promise me you'll call and get this story out. Does that mean he'll hurt them? Do you think he'll hurt them? Did you see the picture? And Kathy is saying, yes, it just came in. Okay, Ronnie, call Ronnie and put him on recorder when you call him. Get enough evidence, all the evidence you can get. My kids could be dead right now. I don't know how she made the grand inferential leap from Chris is trafficking my kids and Chris is in Florida to they could be dead right now. But she did. Then at that point, Neely is now still crying over at the defendant's table, and the tape recording ends. All right. Wow. It was like you were just exhausted after hearing that. And Neely asks for a break. She's crying hysterically, asks the court for a break, is blowing her nose, and the court grants her a break. The jury is asked to step out. Neely is crying audibly still into her tissue, asks if she could go and step back into her holding cell and out of the courtroom. and the court grants this request. At this time, then it's, court is kind of in a recess, and I turned around, the people in the audience, which is all court staff, people like on their lunch break coming in, had heard about this murder trial. I'm assuming there's not, big murder trials in Ocala that much, that something like this is, at least, I don't know. But they were all coming in, looks, and it could be state attorney's office employees that have been working on this case for, 3 years. Also, it looked like sheriff's office employees had been coming in and out, just maybe on a break, and wanted to hear. They had probably been working very diligently and hard on this case for years. So I turned around and I asked one of them, as they're like, wow, whoa, they're all laughing and whoa. Everybody had that attitude, smiling, laughing, and whoa, because this is a case, and here's the confession in the case that they had most likely been working on. So I then asked one of the audience members that she worked at the courthouse, and I had asked her yesterday. And I said, can I ask you a question? She said, sure. I said, did that tape give you a sense of sympathy for Neely at all? She said, absolutely not. She said, when she heard murder 1, she was like, good. She said, I was hoping it wasn't murder 2. So that's what this individual said. Maybe she was court staff that had already been desensitized by the facts in this case, but she had been working on it. I don't know. But I did want to ask someone who had heard the confession tape whether or not that, brought a sense of pathos, sympathy for the person who was on the phone and so excited, in an absolute panic. It sounded like Neely was in panic. All right, so now I'm going to pause a moment. My notes say, by the way, audience is smiling, shaking their heads, mostly court and sheriff's employees coming in to watch. Also, some detectives and cops are here to watch. Then the break was over at 11 a.m. So I'm going to just go back through, and is there any questions? Damn, Tenny, how'd you get me confused between her and Isla? Oh, that's, who's that? Is that Ashley? Ashley. Yeah. Right, Ashley? Gets us confused all the time. What I do, he accuses you of. It was me. It was me. Okay. For whatever the allegation was. All right, I'm going to go down and see if I can see a few questions, guys. And if you have any, please put them in. I'm kind of scrolling down. I'm behind, so Mert can put them up. Exactly. Fireman John. Sovereign citizen bingo. You win life. That's right. It's 4 corners. You win life. Yeah, I don't see task force in here. And one person criminalized for being family notes she kidnapped her own children. That's exactly right. She's the one that had kidnapped them. I think it was more than once. We did go through some of her history of that when her sister testified. By the way, her sister Savannah did testify today. She was a beautiful, beautiful woman. She was so normal. I couldn't believe she was from the same family. But she was very normal. She was very well spoken. She was called as a state witness, and she wasn't there to throw her sister under the bus at all. She was there just to tell the truth. And I guess the state needed some of the background on Neely's previous goings on and legal entanglements and the kidnapping of her own children. And that's what Savannah could testify about because she's a family member. And there were times where Savannah even tried to edge on the side of, helping Neely. Her comments, I could tell, were trying to be supportive of her sister, but she was also, by the same token, forced to tell the truth. So that was just a very interesting, push and pull and a dichotomy in between her testimony. By the way, Mert, are you here? Can you speak now, or are your system working? Can anyone hear Mert? I can't hear her. Anyway, there was a lady, Dawn, who was the first wife of Christopher Hallett, and I spoke about her yesterday. And I had explained that she was the first wife of Chris Hallett. She still got along with him up until the day that he died. She had remained close with him, had lived with him even after the divorce for some time, and that they had one child named Matthew, who's now an adult. And I stated, because I heard that the child was not with them but had been given back. She had gotten the child back at age 7, when the child was age 17. I wrongfully assumed that the child had been taken away from them by Department of Children and Families, DCF. And that was a wrong, incorrect assumption. I had been speaking with Dawn yesterday, and to her husband, who's a great, jolly, smiley old guy. And so we had kind of been all friendly after she testified. She was able to come and sit into court, and I had been, sitting, near her husband the whole day. So, but she wanted me to make the correction, and I will, that her child was not taken away from them, from her and Chris, by DCF. That apparently they, voluntarily left the child. I don't know if it was a family member or what, but they were both very young, etc. She said then she tried several times to get him back and did get him back at age 17. But it was not that the child was removed from the household. So I apologize for making that incorrect assumption. I told Dawn that I would make a correction on the record, and I have. And if Dawn is watching, shout out to Dawn. I know you've been through a rough time. She's had to sit there and witness autopsy photos and death scene photos of her first husband, a man that she still had remained close with, and they had a child together. So shout out to Dawn. Thank you for making that correction for me. And I've now done it to the audience. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to some questions. There's a comment, criminalized for being family. Yes, she has forever traumatized those children and Chris's entire family and her own. Well said. That is well said. Neely has forever traumatized her children. She has forever traumatized and changed Chris's entire family and her own. Going to be looking at comments now, scrolling down. L. Kennedy noted, all these people involved should be held accountable for their own actions in this mess, like whoever was whispering in her ear. And I could not agree more. And I think that what Mert should do is, after all the trial coverage, then, we can kind of afterwards maybe regurgitate everything back up, what we learned, after we've been through it all, then you can look back and have a more complete picture of the horizon. And that's a topic I think that it warrants more discussion, is who was whispering in her ear that made her want to kill Chris Hallett? Who made her believe that her children were being trafficked by Chris Hallett? It wasn't Kirk. At first we were thinking maybe it was Kirk. Well, no, because she was blaming him too. So she believed he was in on this child trafficking operation with the higher ups and had also exploited her. So who else was she talking to at the time? If anyone wants to go on Facebook, Neely's Facebook page is still up and active, and you can go and scroll back and see her last Facebook posts, and you could see who was commenting, who was liking her Facebook posts. Chris surely was liking some of them, and when she even said, I'm going to Chris's house, and she had posted that she was on her way to Chris's and was traveling down to see him. But who else was on her Facebook posts, giving her thumbs up, liking all of her posts? Who else was very close with her? You'll be able to see for yourself, and you can make the determination. Going through some of the comments. TN Lights says, poor IBT, played by Flynn. Her goose is cooked for getting involved in offering legal advice. Well, I can tell you that if that is the Canadian woman, she had offered the worst legal advice in the world. But at least she bought Neely a new black suit for her to go to prison. The prison that she helped send her to. All right. And Fireman John, if you're going to murder the E-Claws owner, probably should take your E-Claws vanity plate off. Just saying, as you're riding down that road. I agree. All right. Let's see, I'm going to go down. I'm really behind. So sorry. Wild Lily says, thank you, Kim, for coverage. I've been watching for the past 2 days. I feel like I'm in the courtroom listening to you. Thank you. That's what I'm really trying to achieve. I thank you very much. And that means a lot to me. So I wanted everybody, I know everybody here is very interested. If you're here watching, you're very interested in the Neely case for whatever reason. Maybe you're a family member. Maybe you just been a part of a circle of people that have followed this E-Clause and Neely Blanchard saga for a while. We surely were following the E-Clause saga prior to Chris's homicide. I don't think we had ever talked much about Neely. She was just a peripheral player that had been on, we'd all seen her, I think, on E-Clause or something. But otherwise, we were not familiar with Neely prior to this homicide. And then those of us who were monitoring E-Clause and things of that nature went back to find, who is this lady Neely, and instantly said, I remember that lady. She had been on the show before with the guy Gentry and all of that. All right. I'm reading comments. Murder groupies. Who was spitting, frothing, and literally screaming as he raged about Chris Hallett before he died. I think I remember there was a guy on a video and he was just reaming out Chris Hallett, saying horrible things about him. He was sitting on a couch. Then he started jacking off. So I had to turn off that video. That was disgusting. But someone should look into that guy. He didn't like Chris. Next. Beverly Blanchard said she bought Neely's suit. Well, there you have it. It wasn't the Canadian after all, even though they tried to take credit. So Beverly Blanchard, I apologize. Someone else tried to take credit for your black suit, and that is apparently her mother-in-law. And I believe that's what she said above. Oh, we do have mother-in-laws in here? I'm sorry if I'm saying anything that offends anybody. I really am. If I have family members in here, this is all my opinion. I've been monitoring this group quite a while. I do have strong opinions. I'm not ashamed of them. I will be voicing them tonight. And that's just my opinion. And everyone's got a different opinion. Okay. Shar, yes, Kim, that is correct. The YouTube met the Facebook groups. Yes. Okay. Now, then I'm hearing Paula C. Blades just did a comment about someone pulling a pud. I think that's what they called that guy when he started jacking off. Really just excoriating Chris Hallett. He was pulling his pud. I guess that made him excited. I digress. Okay. We had then, after that dramatic recording of the confession, we had the recess. It was 11:11 a.m. when everyone came back into the courtroom. The jury was sat back down, and we had cross-examination by Neely. Her voice was still very shaky. It sounded like she was still just kind of getting over that hard cry, as if she was holding back tears. No one likes to hear that, especially a woman. I can't stand to hear other women cry. I feel sorry for them. So that even kind of got me a little bit, only because you just can almost feel their feelings. I didn't feel sorry, for her in general of what she's done. She's where she needs to be, on trial for murder. But to hear someone so upset and to know that, everything that had happened, it was upsetting to me. I don't know if it was because of her or for her, but it was upsetting to hear her so upset. She attempted to cross-examine the detective. She had already asked him, what's your badge number? So she didn't need to ask him that anymore. She'd already asked him, were you in the military? What division? When did you start? What was your mother's name? What's your father's name? Where'd your brother go to school? And get all objected to all over again. She had already done that the day before. Then she again tried to enter an exhibit in her own case, and the judge explained to her again, very calmly and nicely, You can't enter exhibits on the state's case in chief. It's not your turn yet. When it's your turn, when they rest and it's your turn, then you can enter in your evidence. And Neely kind of seemed to then get it. Oh, she said, okay, thank you. She wanted to know all about the cell phone software. They were irrelevant questions. It was almost as if she was just curious, which I found she was questioning people a lot, not because it mattered, but because she was curious for information, almost like she was able to interview them or something, which was, just more of this that was typical Neely for me. She was asking about the software, whether the feds used it or not, this, that, and the other. She got objected to all the damn over the place because she was just asking stupid questions, such as, did Shannon tell you I was unstable? Objection, hearsay, relevance, and of course, objection sustained. How about this as a question to the cop? Are you aware of anyone in this case that has a personal vendetta against me? Objection sustained. Are you aware of any technologies that are weapons used against the American citizens? Objection sustained. No further questions by Neely. And then what was curious is, after all of these witnesses this in the morning, and if you recall yesterday, I said that one of the things that Neely did not do properly that an attorney would have, and that she would be at a disadvantage because she did not have an attorney, was because when the state brought their witnesses under subpoena, Neely did not subpoena them herself, nor did she ask that those witnesses' subpoenas be retained so that she could then call them in her case. Instead, it was the witness can be released. And then the witness was then like sitting in the courtroom, like listening to the rest of the day's testimony. So they would have been incapable of ever coming back as a witness for her. And the correct thing to do would be to ask the court to retain that witness for her case in chief so that she could potentially recall them for impeachment or otherwise in her case. Well, someone listened to my legal advice last night on the program, and guess what she did with each witness today? She retained each witness as a potential to call in her case in chief. So whoever was listening to my program, there's a lot of psychos over on Telegram that love to hate me, but they're obviously looking at my pretty mug on Merch Show, hanging on every word I say, and then giving Neely legal advice in jail, because she definitely wouldn't have thought of that herself. So I gave her great legal advice. Neely, you can thank me later. Any questions? Oh, let me go through. Okay. And for whatever reason, I can't scroll down in the comments anymore. Okay, I don't see any more like comments, or maybe I just can't scroll down. I don't know. All right. So I thought that was interesting that there are little birdies here listening to me that hate me. How you doing? You might hate me, but you're listening to me, and I'm living in your head rent free. And then you're taking everything that I'm saying and you're taking it to Neely, your friend. That's all right. It's all right. You can thank me. Giving your friend some good advice. I helped her today. All right. What was interesting is when we had state witness number 4, which was Savannah Hendricks. And again, I've described Savannah for you. I don't know if anyone here knows Savannah, and quite frankly, I couldn't tell. Is she on Neely's side? Is she on, not on Neely's side? Where was she? Her testimony was so down the middle and honest, which is a real compliment to a witness by a lawyer, that I really could not tell whose side she was on. So I don't know if again, she had been sitting outside with Neely's mom. She was the ones that I felt bad for because they had been sitting there for 2 days just reading their phones. And I wanted to say, hey, go to the mall or something. You're probably not going to get called. But who knew? She was going to get called. And it was by the state. So she was a state witness. She lives in Kentucky. The age difference is 6 years between she and Neely. She is 6 years younger than Neely. She has 3 children of her own. When she started testifying, even the very beginning, Neely started crying again. She was audibly crying, wiping tears from her eyes, just the sight of seeing her sister up there on a witness stand at her own murder trial testifying for the state. That was enough to make Neely cry. Would have been enough to make me cry too. They were talking about who has custody of Mackenzie. She testified the paternal grandmother. That would be Chad's grandmother. And Chad is, the ex. He is now deceased. Neely had 1 child with him when they were very young, and that was Mackenzie. And then she had, I guess, the twins with some other dude. I don't know. It must have been some other dude. They were asking all about how long she had custody of Mackenzie and what had happened. She said that Neely believed and believes that Mackenzie was taken from her illegally. However, there was a valid court order, and she had, admitted to that. The custody of the twins, Neely's twins, right now resides with Neely's mother, and that has been since around 2015. And Mackenzie, by the way, had been in the custody of Chad's mother since around, at least formally and legally, since 2014 was the final order granting her custody, but it actually had custody of that child since around 2010. So that must have been a very long court battle, throughout the years over Mackenzie. What was interesting is anytime, and I'm going to get to it on her cross. I didn't take many notes about Savannah's testimony. It was mainly just to tell the history of the children and the custody litigation, and I guess that there were valid court orders that Neely had actually knew that these were court orders. It wasn't that someone had stolen her children. No one had kidnapped her children. She had lost custody battle after custody battle from her own behavior throughout the years. And this was from 3 different children, 2 different courts, and 2 different dads. So she was also asked by the state if Neely had told her 6 months before Chris was killed, if Neely had told her that Chris was lying to her and tracking her kids. And Savannah said yes. Well, actually, she hemmed and hawed a little bit, but the state attorney had to get out her deposition transcript, which sometimes happens a lot, and to refresh someone's recollection about their exact words. And it notes that that was an inconsistent answer, but in the deposition, she finally admitted, oh, yeah, that's right. It's been a long time. I did say it like that, and that is the truth. That she had, and then she had told her that they thought that that Neely had thought that her own family had sent the children, the twins, to Chris's house to be trafficked. And she admitted that she said that in deposition, and that's what happened. Okay, so during the testimony, Neely was crying, upset, etc. Then we have a cross-exam. So those are the main points. The state did a great job of filtering out testimony, didn't sit there and go on and on and on like we've seen in some cases, asking, what's your education, what's your name, what's your social security number to every single person that gets on there. They just kind of went right for the heart of the matter. They introduced the witnesses. They got right to the point, told us what relationship that witness had with this case. And we instantly knew why they were testifying, because out comes the relevant testimony. And that was the same way with Savannah. Just the history of the custody litigation, the fact that none of these children were kidnapped from Neely. They were all taken from Neely pursuant to lots of court hearings, which means lots of due process and days in court granted to Neely, and an ability to have attorneys to fight, to have justice, fair play in court, and due process. And in the end, court ruled against her many times. And again, this is 2 different courts, 3 different kids. Cross-examination of her sister. She came up and she said in a very sing-song cheerleader way, like Neely can only do, "Hello, Savannah." That's how she started out. "Hello, Savannah." So she wanted to go and regurgitate any trauma and bad thing that had ever happened in their lives as children. It was objection the entire time. She asked her every inappropriate, irrelevant question that one could possibly ask a witness on the witness stand, and literally got out no information from her sister. However, just by her questions, I could tell a few things. What we did find out from Savannah, by the way, excuse me, who testified to the state, that the twins were not officially taken away from her at first. She dropped the twins off, excuse me, when they were 9 months old to her mother. So she abandoned her twins. She left them there, and they were only 9 months old. Throughout the questioning of Savannah, the most I heard about every question was about Mackenzie, about getting Mackenzie back, about who was doing what to Mackenzie. I just came away with the personal impression that Neely's more into Mackenzie. That's really was her concern. That's what she's always talking about, was Mackenzie, and that was clear. She barely mentioned the twins at all. Maybe it's because she had more of a court battle involving Mackenzie. I believe she also went to jail for a year or so for kidnapping Mackenzie. She's, again, the one that actually kidnapped Mackenzie and went to jail. But even the sister had to admit that with regard to the twins, Neely dropped the twins off at the mother and when they were 9 months old, babies, and left them there. Okay, which is kind of sad. I'm going to read through the comments real quick. Pete asks, "Kim, how many notebooks did you use up so far on this trial?" Well, good question. And I had my tablet, so I wasn't writing. I would never be able to write that fast. I can write fast, but not that fast. But I can type pretty quickly. I can type about 90 words a minute. And so I'm typing furiously the whole time. Oh, hang on. It's Mert. One sec. So I have these tablet pages, and that's usually over 30 pages a day. Single space. 1 minute. Hello, Mert. I'm still on your show. Okay. Okay. All right, so I'm doing Mert's show tonight. Okay, so I don't know how to log off. I guess everybody will either log off for themselves or stay on forever. Okay. All right, I'll tell everybody they can stay on your show forever if they want to. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Thanks. All right, bye. All right, so Mert can hear everything, but is unable to get on his console in order to participate. So here we go. All right. Now, I was kind of just looking at L. Kennedy, Kim. Fireman John asked, and I'm sorry, I'm missing the comments as I'm talking, and then I scroll up and I can only scroll up a little bit. So if you're asking questions, re-ask it if you really want me to know it or to answer it, because I'll lose it. I'm sorry. So L. Kennedy is reminding me that Fireman John had asked how with the SO keeping Neely safe with the suicide watch during the trial. If that's wrong, John, please ask. When they're going to be in court, there's bailiffs all around, and there's many people on suicide watch. In fact, with most high-profile inmates, they will go on suicide watch maybe even for the first 24, 48 hours as a matter of protocol in some jails. So, but that doesn't mean they can't go into court. No, there's nothing to slash their wrist with or to try to commit suicide with. In fact, I remember in the beginning of this trial, Neely had asked the judge, "Can I have a different pen? This pen is, bending, and I can't write with it." And the judge said, "I'm sorry, they can get you another pen like that, but you have certain pens because you're an inmate." So that was a pen that she couldn't do the stabbing anybody or anything with it. She had a pen. Oh my gosh, look at Reagan. Oh, look at my friend Reagan. Hi, Reagan. Such a good friend of mine. And this is Reagan. I don't know if you see her comment, but she was actually at one time a very avid Timothy Homeseth follower. And I was on Twitter one time and I corrected her grammar. And she's actually real smart. So she took offense to that. And boy, is she a spitfire. And she told me off for correcting her grammar. And then I said a few words and she said a few words. And we started then fighting about the facts of what I had done or not done. And she was like, oh. And she realized she had heard my side of the story. Interestingly enough, we ended up, taking a break from the brawl and going to our respective corners, but then went into private messaging in Twitter and actually we were able to have conversations and exchange information of what she thought. She asked me questions. I gave her my answers. If I had a document to back it up, I said, and I will email you that document right now to show you that I'm telling the truth, to show you that Tim didn't do this or did do this. And I showed documents that would, exonerate me in my eyes. And they did, even to Reagan. So I really love her very much. She was one of the few people that was a Homeseth fan that actually heard me out. And I was able to finally get to know her, and she got to know me. And I can say she's one of my dearest friends. And I just have a lot of respect for her, by the way. All right. So I am going to go on. We were at Neely cross-examining Savannah. Okay. And again, this was all about Mackenzie, barely talking about her thoughts or feelings or the twins at all. What was interesting is there was an allegation that was an insinuation, I believe, by the state attorney that Neely, with regard to Mackenzie, that Neely and her husband or boyfriend, Chad, had been very young when they had Mackenzie and, were doing sex, drugs, rock and roll, and lost a child. And the allegation was that, that Neely was doing drugs. And through the questioning, even though Neely was getting objections sustained, and she got no information from Savannah, hardly at all, you could tell by her questions that Neely had been asked to go take a hair follicle test on one of those hearings, which sometimes happens in courtrooms that I'm in. The court has the authority to order you right then to go and take a hair follicle test. Depending on the courthouse you're at, they might have drug testing facilities right there on the premises. And other times they're across the street or something, and a court staff or bailiff would go and walk your ass across the street for you to take your test and observe. So with regard to the questions, I believe that Neely was asked to take hair follicle test, and as we know, that goes back months, up to 8 months. You can tell what type of drugs you used for a period of a long time, 6 to 8 months. And the hair follicle test, apparently, just by the way the questions, even though they were objected to, that hair follicle test came back negative. So in one of the court hearings about Mackenzie, where the allegation was that Neely was doing drugs, I have to say that I believe from the questions today that Neely was ordered to do a hair follicle test and that it came back clean. Got to tell the truth when it's the truth, right? Apparently, with Mackenzie, she at least was acting as if she had been given custody back, and then she'd lose it again, give custody back. That's the child that she had kidnapped and did go to jail for custodial interference. I'm saying kidnapped, but I don't know the exact facts. I do know that I remember seeing video in a news article of her showing up at a school of one of her children and kidnapping. That was either the twins or Mackenzie. I don't know if anybody else knows, but she did talk about that at great length. She would ask questions such as, "Wasn't I given back my rights to Mackenzie in 2012?" So that's how I was trying to get information. Now, again, I don't know if it was true or not, or it's just Neely's version of the world. I could rarely get an answer out of Savannah because all of those questions were inappropriate. But Neely was doing quite a good job, in my opinion, of getting out her narrative about these children with inappropriate questions, leading questions that were objected to and sustained. So the answers never came out. But you can ask a question that you're adamant about, and that the answers never have to be said, because it's isn't it true that so and so reported the drug test results right in court? Could she be making up lies in detail? Yes, but if she was getting a good she was getting a narrative out of her side of the story with regard to the kids. Still wasn't good, but at some point during Savannah's testimony, Neely started crying, and so did the witness. I think that they had touched on an issue about, previous trauma in the family, or Neely would ask, how did our father die?" As they're both kind of crying. In my opinion, Neely, as she was doing a great job getting out her narrative, she was also manipulating Savannah into crying, into being a more sympathetic witness, so that she would look more sympathetic to that jury. So, in my opinion, that was not genuine. She did it several times. Her voice would change. It completely was manufactured. She was trying to get out feelings by the jury, and was manufacturing sympathy for her by making her sister upset about tragedies that had happened in their life. Even though she was getting objected to, it clearly, Neely knows how to strike a nerve and how to push her sister's buttons to turn on the waterworks. The sister was devastated. Here she is in her own sister's murder trial. So Savannah, I can imagine, it's the last place she wanted to be. But even talking about previous traumas in their family, we never got to hear about them, but you would normally want to feel sorry for someone, or at least that would be some type of an exculpatory evidence or events or circumstances that might somehow explain away why she was so fucked up in the head and shot Chris. I don't know what it was, but it was a good job by Neely. She was manipulating the questions. She was getting out her narrative, even though she probably didn't get out but 5 answers out of her witness. She did a good job with that witness. I'm going to look for any questions. Is that the child she took from school? I don't know. That's what I was wondering, Lori. I don't know if she stole the twins from the school, or if she had stolen Mackenzie, or if she had stolen both sets of, both of these children, all of the children on 2 different occasions. I don't know. She kept saying to Savannah, "Don't you remember what I told you about E-Clause 6 months ago?" And she wanted to say that was around like Thanksgiving or something, but that couldn't have been, because Thanksgiving, I'm assuming was after November 15th in 2020. I'd have to look at a calendar, but I'm assuming. So Savannah did not know much about her work with E-Clause, just what she had told her. She also said, "Wasn't it true that I was ordered to pay child support both in South Carolina and I think either Kentucky or Florida?" So apparently Neely had been ordered to pay child support for these children because she did not have custody of them, and other people were watching her children for her and caring for them. I don't know the answer of whether or not she ever got in trouble for child support, lack of payment, or anything. That wasn't brought up. She asked her sister, "Do you know what Title IV is?" She asked her sister, "Do you have any concerns with my stability?" objection sustained. So again, she's leading up and marching towards the not guilty by reason of intemperate insanity, with her talking about how others in her life have deemed her to be unstable. And she did bring out in the deposition that her sister had said that Neely had struggled with mental health issues. Of course, that was sustained. You're not allowed to just bring out deposition testimony. There are certain rules in court. The only times you would be able to bring out deposition testimony or read from a deposition transcript, and this was not one of them. So she was simply breaking the rules, but getting away with it because she was making a narrative in front of that jury. She would cry sporadically, making her sister cry. She would go up and hand her sister the box of tissues. They would have this pause of a moment. It was like this. So Neely knew exactly what she was doing, all right? And she kept her on subpoena too. She retained her sister and retained her on subpoena in case she needed her for impeachment or otherwise. Okay, one moment. I'm just getting a text message. So you guys can talk while I just get this real quick. Okay, here's what I'm hearing, and I have no way to corroborate this information. I don't know who it's from, but it's very detailed. I'm hearing that perhaps Shannon Tanis may have been taken off the state's witness list. If so, that's huge. She is, although we've already had one eyewitness testify, and that would be Shannon's daughter, Liliana, Shannon clearly would have been a very powerful witness for the state. I had a feeling they were saving her until maybe the last day. You want to save some of your most powerful witnesses and testimony that would really wrap into the jury and bring your case home until the end. So I'm hearing that what had happened was Shannon had apparently, and again, I have no way to corroborate this. I'm hearing that Shannon walked into the courtroom and heard some of the proceeding, that Neely turned around and locked eyes with Shannon. And again, I don't even know when this would have happened. Locked eyes with Shannon, and that Neely had a meltdown, and that Neely demanded that Shannon be sequestered as a witness, and the state took Shannon off the witness list. And that this is exactly why they had a competency hearing. So I don't remember Neely ever saying, "There's Shannon. She shouldn't be in here," but maybe that had happened by email from Neely to the state or something like that we wouldn't have seen sitting in the audience. I have no reason to doubt this person's rendition of what happened. And again, it is extremely detailed. It sounds like someone who would have an inside scoop or information. And if so, and if Shannon walked into that courtroom, that is unfortunate, because that will, yes, get you thrown off a witness list. And although I believe that the state still has a super strong case, that even if Shannon did not testify, there could be no way, at least as of now, that there is any doubt that Neely committed premeditated murder. We have the cell phone, we have an eyewitness, we have a confession on tape, we have just about everything you would need except a live video of it happening. So I'm not concerned about this too much, but it is unfortunate that Shannon did not get to have her day in court. Maybe someone didn't tell her She wasn't allowed in the courtroom or something. I don't know what happened. And I guess we're going to find out more about that later. Now I'm going to just read through any questions. All right. Apparently Beverly Blanchard is in here, so she would know like everything. So if I'm saying something wrong, I hope she's correcting me. I don't see her listed as Beverly Blanchard, so I don't know. I'm assuming that's Neely's mom. Am I right? I don't know who that is. Sorry. And oh, here's Dawn. Oh, hi, Dawn. Dawn is in here. Now, Dawn can give you inside information because she was in the courtroom as well. So whatever Beverly Blanchard says and the person named Dawn Bowers, please listen to them because they were sitting there too. Dawn is saying, yes, she did. Oh, Dawn looks like she logged off. Okay. All right. Any questions for me? You can put them on down. Yeah, Paula. That might have happened that the state removed Shannon, which is oh, there's Dawn. Hi, Dawn. I did make the clarification, so wanted to apologize again if I assumed incorrectly, and I apparently did, and that happens sometimes. That when I do, I will apologize and own up to it, and I apologize. You never had your child taken away from you by DCF, and that is clear. And you looked like you would have been a great mom, and your husband is so nice, by the way. All right. Paula Blades is reporting that she spoke to Shannon. Dawn, do you know anything about Shannon walking into the courtroom? And you saw what happened? So does anyone have any confirmation that Shannon has been taken off the witness list? If they could leave a comment, even if you've already spoken about it. I didn't see it because I was talking. And I'm not seeing any comments come up readily. All right, so now I just, to close, I know it's getting late. So just to close, we had dramatic things happen after Savannah testified. What happened was there was a recess or a break. And when we all went back into the courtroom, the state attorneys said that they had received an email from Dr. Krupp, that is Neely Blanchard's expert witness who was going to be testifying on her behalf. Dawn Bowers is saying, yes, Shannon was removed from the state's witness list before entering the courtroom. Okay. Interesting. I wish I would have seen her. I did not see Shannon. I wish someone would have told me she was there. I was probably sitting right there with her. Damn it. Okay. So much I know. All right, but that is, exciting information. Thank you so much, Dawn. And I did not know even what Shannon looked like. So apparently she was already removed from the state's witness list before entering the courtroom. So apparently the state might not have thought that they needed her. And again, just like I said, I thought this was an incredibly strong case, laden with the most strong evidence that you could imagine, plus a voice, a confession in the defendant's own voice. I mean, you just can't. Dawn Bowers, she was sitting in front of me. I was sitting in front of you. Was she sitting? Dawn, do you know if she was sitting near me? Wow. Interesting. So I was probably sitting right near Shannon. And I know that Shannon is a true believer in the sovereign citizen ideology. It's my understanding she is an instructor of sorts for the sovereign citizen ideology, so she would probably hate me. But I won't hate her. I'd like to study her and ask her questions. I'd love to do that. But she would probably hate me because I'm a bar attorney. And I put sovereign citizens in jail whenever I can if they commit crimes. No, I was in front of her. Darn. Okay, thanks so much, Dawn. Thank you. All right, so that's dramatic news right there also. All right, so here's the other dramatic news. Just hang on with the dramatic, I'm getting all of this dramatic news and breaking news. Wait a second. All right, so towards the end of the, after that break, then everybody comes back into the courtroom. State attorney announces, Your Honor, we have to tell you something. We got an email from Dr. Kropp, Neely's expert witness, who is going to testify about her temporary insanity and who had already given her a competency evaluation previously and held her to be competent to stand trial. Two different standards. Competency to stand trial is different than temporary insanity. So they explained that Dr. Kropp has stated in his email that he no longer believes that Neely is competent to stand trial. So as a lawyer, I'm going, holy moly. That means the proceedings stop right there. Stop right there. Stop. Don't pass go. Then you have to have a complete redo of competency evaluations. You have to stop the trial. You have to have another competency hearing. I'm like, oh no, this is my last day here. And now I'm going to, like, it's 1 o'clock. It's after lunch. And I'm going to miss, there's nothing going to be done. And I was right. So everything that I just told you happened. The court said, okay, that means, and here's what's the protocol and what has to happen, and this is to protect the due process rights of any litigant that may not be competent to stand trial. And clearly we do not want people who are incompetent having to stand trial, potentially be held guilty for a crime when they cannot even aid in their defense. They don't know the nature of the charges. That would be unfair. So what happened is the standard protocol. Stop the presses of the trial. The jury was not called back in. The state had said that they had already gotten on the horn with their expert doctor who had originally found her competent. And the state's got, their experts, in their back pocket. We all have our experts. And they had already called Dr. Demery, was his name, to see if he could come to the courthouse, like now, and give Neely a competency evaluation. When the issue of competency of the defendant is raised, stop the presses, and the court is required, if it is raised by a expert or a professional, it's going to be looked into. And so Dr. Demery apparently had told the state attorneys that he could get in the car and come to the courthouse now. So they were hot to trot. They were like, we don't want to stop this trial. We're, winning and we're almost done. And, who wants to waste all of those resources? And you don't know if witnesses would be able to come back to testify, and memories fade, all sorts of things. It could be even people that could be deceased, or even a detective could not show up, and you wouldn't be able to get evidence in or have it authenticated, because you would have to start all over, and you'd have to have a whole new jury. Wouldn't be like you picked up where you left off. So what happened was the state assured the court that Dr. Demery was on his way. The court said, well, we're going to have to hear from Dr. Kropp as well. Neely, sing-song Neely, said, oh, I don't think Dr. Kropp could come today because he's in court in another courthouse. He's in trial. So she already knew where her expert was, who said that she was incompetent. And no, I'm not accusing Dr. Kropp of lying on Neely's behalf, but it did sound that like that Neely was happy about this news that Dr. Kropp had questioned her competency after once finding her competent. So I'm thinking in my head, what could have happened to have changed this doctor's mind? Well, he had to have been talking to Neely on the phone, or had come to visit Neely in the jail just, within the last day or so. And she talked, smack. She had talked her sovereign citizen and QAnon child trafficking BS, and probably hammed it up if she wanted to. Could have hammed it up for this doctor. And he's questioning her competency. I don't know if that's what happened. That's what I was thinking in my head could have happened. But he definitely spoke with her because something had changed between his last competency evaluation in the very beginning of time that made him feel or question her competency. Here we are in the middle of the trial. So something had to have happened. Something had to have changed. She had to have spoken with him, and something led him to believe that she was no longer competent. So the court said all right, get Dr. Demery here, your expert witness. Let's give her a psych eval, and let's get Dr. Krupp to come in here. The court asked, can you ask Dr. Demery how long this is going to take? Because we got a jury waiting. And of course, it wouldn't be, we knew that the jury was going to have to go for the day, that this would be, clearly the end of today. But it was a matter of, would we have to stop for days? So they called Dr. Demery again from outside, and Dr. Demery apparently told him, the state attorney comes back in and says, Your Honor, Dr. Demery said he's getting in the car now, and that this will take, an hour or so, and that he'd be ready for a competency hearing by 4 p.m. today. So Dr. Demery's hot to trot, right? So then she says, well, what about Dr. Krupp? We've got to have him in that hearing too. So she said, someone get a hold of him. Well, that's not their witness. They didn't call him, from outside. And that's when Neely was saying, well, he's in court. He probably won't even be able to show up. She was all happy about that. And so, because it stops this trial. And she has to realize she's losing. She's not dumb, right? She's not. And in my opinion, she's not incompetent. She knows she's losing. And she heard that confession tape loud and clear and saw the jury's reaction and broke down in tears. So the court said that it was going to release the jury. The court made up something that the jury did not, of course, tell them that competency was an issue, but let them go for the remainder of the afternoon. And again, this is around, 1 o'clock or so, right after lunch break, and said that they were going to try to get in touch with Dr. Krupp to see if he could make it for an afternoon 4 o'clock competency hearing. So I was like, shit, well, I might as well just drive home because I have to be, I'm going to be in a hearing in my own life in Fort Lauderdale tomorrow, so I could not stay. So I was going to leave after the court had concluded at the end of the day, but instead I got in the car and just, went on. Mert, however, was there. So he said he was going to kind of hang around the courthouse or go back at around 3:30 or so to see if that hearing was taking place. So he went back and hung around, stalked out everybody. Way to go, Mert. And the state attorneys, I guess, were in a closed hearing, private hearing, and they came out and he asked what was going on. And they said that there was going to be a later competency hearing. Well, now we know it is now on the court's website that the court put in that hearing did occur and that Neely was deemed competent. So the trial will go on. All right. The trial will go on. She was deemed competent. The jury will come back tomorrow morning at 8:30 and not know anything even happened about competency. And in my head, I was thinking, and first of all, it's up to the judge to determine competency of a litigant. They hear from experts, but they make an independent decision, and it's within their sole purview and discretion. So this judge had been hearing Neely litigate for days. She's even told her she did a good job. She's seeing Neely manipulate witnesses. She had to have seen the same types of things that I was seeing with Savannah, even with comments, with asking the leading questions, knowing she was going to be objected to, but just getting out her narrative. These are all things that you'd have to be pretty savvy. You're not going to be someone who doesn't even understand the proceedings or the nature of the charges. As a matter of fact, in her opening, she was suggesting other charges other than first-degree murder. She was suggesting that to the jury, if you recall. So not only does she understand the nature of the charges against her, she was able to suggest other charges for the charges that she liked better, that maybe she wanted them to choose from. So in my head, I was thinking, there's no way that this judge is going to find her incompetent unless both of those dudes find her incompetent. And then still, that judge would be like, I've been watching this lady, and she's looking pretty competent to me. So I don't believe that a judge would ever go against two incompetency designations. But so clearly, Ms. Dr. Demery must have found, I'm just sort of insinuating and guessing, found that Neely was competent. Dr. Krupp said that she was incompetent. We had the judge, in her own discretion, could make that ruling after seeing everything she's seeing and after seeing Neely being a very competent and capable pro se litigant. So that's the final word on the competency, and now the trial will proceed as scheduled. And that is really where I'm at. Now I see you guys are talking with Mert, and Mert can't sign on. How do they evaluate someone on suicide watch? On suicide watch, that just means they take away like their sheets. They take away anything in there that would even toothpaste. They take away. They have just usually a mattress on the floor. They don't have any springs or anything like that. They would take away everything, and they also do rounds where they there's protocols for how often they have to check on that particular person on suicide watch, on the inmate, and they take away everything, and that they're in a cell by themselves. So that's the only thing that happens on suicide watch. They're not actually being watched in the cell. No one's sitting with them. No one's constantly watching them. There's most likely a protocol, which I don't know what it is. I think it's every hour or so, half hour, to make sure that they're not trying to strangle themselves or something. But it's made sure that there's nothing in the cell that they could possibly hurt themselves with. So ask Epstein, right? Well, what else do we have, guys? Because otherwise I'm about done, and it's 11:09 p.m. and it is probably past everyone's bedtime. TN Lights is saying suicide watch, solitary confinement, locked in a room. I bet she will hear voices in her head while sitting there. No, the only voices she's going to be hearing in her head is, why the fuck did I shoot Chris Hallett? Why? She's surely not going to be hearing any auditory hallucinations, in my opinion. A Canadian is not interfering in a U.S. trial, in my opinion, Lori. The Canadian is is she influencing Neely? Sure. Neely's not a witness. Neely's a grown woman. She can listen and go down the rabbit hole with whoever she likes. She can even have a waltz and a dance down there in that rabbit hole with the Canadian. It's not illegal. The Canadian isn't in court representing her, or trying to, as Christopher Hallett would often do. And the Canadian's not giving her legal advice and representing herself as an attorney. In fact, she's made it perfectly clear that she's just discussing stuff with her. And as I said, I think in the first show we did, it's perfectly normal for people to talk about their trials or what they're going to do, and you should do this and you shouldn't do that. Is she influencing her in an extremely negative and dangerous way? Yes. But again, we can't control what people believe. There's thousands, if not maybe millions, I don't know, still left, of QAnon believers. That was whacked, guys. That was fucking whacked. But you're not going to say that the followers are followers. They're grown people. You hate to see someone become so negatively influenced and to go down the rabbit hole. But, there's nothing really you can do. They're grown adults. It's hard to get family members back from when they go and live with a cult on a cult premises, or Jonestown, or any of the church cults we've seen, Jeffries. If there's nothing illegal going on there, they're grown adults, and they're going to be allowed to be wrongfully influenced. Levi Page. Did Chris or Kirk show up to court on behalf of Tim in Minnesota? Yes. I believe that Kirk did, and so did David Straight. Chris did not. Kirk attempted to litigate, and so did David, as an attorney for Tim Homseth. The judge asked both of them if they were an attorney, licensed attorney. They argued about that. They had filed, I think David or Kirk had filed a legal brief that was like 100 pages long about right to counsel, when there's clearly each state has a right to regulate their own bar. And if you're a sovereign citizen, you can look. There's the 10th Amendment of your U.S. Constitution that's so important to you. It says that all power is not delegated to the federal government, lie with the states. So unless it says it in the Holy Grail, that U.S. Constitution, it's going to be a power that is delegated to the states. States are independent sovereigns that can make up their own laws about most things. There are some topics that are what's called preempted by federal law. But if it's not preempted by federal law, states are going to be able to make up their own rules. So states are able to make up their own rules regulating who goes into their courtrooms. It's not a federal law. States can say, you can have anybody you want go in there and litigate. State could say that, pass a law about it, but they haven't. Most states that I know of, most likely all 50 states in the United States, have passed laws mandating that someone is a licensed attorney, a trained attorney. Otherwise, you get shit like what we have here with Chris Hallett and Kirk, people doing a completely incompetent job for a client. And the client is given ineffective assistance of counsel. The people don't even know the laws, the rules, the statutes. They're quoting, they're talking about right to travel cases and, commercial vehicles from a case that was about like a criminal statute or an IRS tax code or something like that. It wasn't even about cars in general. So you can take, every statutory section, for instance, whether it be domestic violence, patents, whatever statute has a chapter in statute books, and there's always a definition section. And the word commercial can have a different meaning depending on the statute section you're in. So I don't think they realize that. They misinterpret Supreme Court cases. They'll take one sentence out, but not the whole rest of the paragraph that says that states have regulatory and police powers to make sure that people can they can regulate their own streets and roads. They can force people to register to have their cars, force people to have a driver's license if they want to ride down the street in a vehicle or drive down the street. So they forget those parts of the cases that you've sometimes heard them quote, but the court usually goes on to say it exactly as you know it. All right, guys. I think that is going to be it for me. Unless you have another question, it is 11:15. I have a very full day tomorrow in my own cases and trials so that I can be effective assistance of counsel tomorrow for my own paying clients. I'm going to need to hit the sack jack. So unless there's any other questions, I'm going to say adieu. I have no power to shut this thing off. So you can be on there forever unless Mert wants to find a way to kick everybody out of here. Night, Reagan. Mwah. And I love seeing a lot of my friends in here that I've known and talked on Twitter too, and really have come to know. Oh, and Levi with the super chat. I think super chat is what they call that. Left Mert a little tip for all of his troubles and for sitting at the courthouse and stalking down the state attorneys and making sure everyone here is informed about cases that they might be interested in or about people that they may know. So thank you very much to Mert for taking his time to drive his happy ass down to Ocala or up to Ocala and to provide this platform that we can all talk about and hear about the goings on of Neely Blanchard, Chris Hallett, and that crew. So Deanne Light says, Flynn wins. Sorry, IBT and Timmy. All right. And thank you guys very much for listening to me. I hope I've provided you guys with information that is credible. I hope I don't offend anyone if there's a family member in here. These are my opinions of my reactions, of what I saw, and my characterizations of people and things. And it's coming from a good place. I was very interested in this case, so I was glad I got to go up there. And I'm glad you guys are listening to me. So with that said, I'm going to sign out. And I guess the only way I can sign out is to do no cam, disable the cam. So that's what I'm going to do. And thank you, everyone, and have a good night.